Hey everyone, today I am going to be talking about my testimony. I've never shared my full testimony anywhere. I consider myself kind of a private person. I don't really enjoy talking about myself. I usually love getting to know other people and what their stories are about and their testimonies and, you know, just listening and being a support to others. So it's really vulnerable for me to sit here in front of the camera as well as post this on the internet. But I feel instructed by the Lord to take this leap of faith and to share my testimony. And so I'm going to be obedient. I have always felt like my testimony wasn't worth sharing because I've always felt like it's a pretty boring testimony. I think I have placed other testimonies that I've heard superior over mine because they are more exciting, or there's like this radical encounter, or some crazy story that you've never heard before. And so I never really felt it necessary to share my testimony. But the Lord is working on me with that, hence why I am filming this video. And so I am going to just jump right in. I was born with sickle cell disease, which is a genetic blood disorder that basically, instead of my red blood cells being round, my blood cells are shaped like a C or like a crescent moon. So they have pointy ends that get stuck in your arteries or your veins, and it's pretty severe. It can cause organ damage. They cause very painful sickle cell crises. They're also called like pain episodes. They die off quicker. My red blood cells die off quicker. They don't carry as much oxygen. So my mother told me that the doctors told her, I was born in 95, that I wasn't going to live past 10 years old. Today I'm 31. So that is a praise report in itself. But growing up, I didn't really understand my illness because when I was sick, I knew that it was really bad. I knew that I was in excruciating, unexplainable pain. But then after I healed, I went back to just kind of being a regular kid. And with sickle cell, it's a disease and illness that is very severe. It's very life-threatening. I know people that have sickle cell disease that have had organs removed, that have died from this illness. There's so many complications that comes along with sickle cell disease. But I rarely talk about it. And I didn't talk about it a lot as a kid either, because I felt like people really wouldn't understand. And explaining having a blood disorder to a child, like my peers in school, it's difficult because everything is happening internally. It's not an illness that I'm wearing, on the outside that they can look and say like, oh, I can see that Jalen is really sick. And so I just avoided those conversations. I remember like flipping through, like photo books, and I saw a photo of me kind of like, hooked up to the machines. I was in the hospital during like Christmas, and I have a lot of memories of waking up in the middle of night and just excruciating pain and, running into my mother's room and, her handling the situation. I mean, when it comes to my illness, my mother is like my hero. She handled raising me, a sick child, so well. And I really depended on her a lot to be my advocate with my illness, because I think I had an avoidant, I wanted to avoid it as much as possible. Internally, it just was something that I didn't really want to deal with. It was just something that I just had to get through. So as a child, I was often hospitalized. I remember, having to be picked up, I'd go over a friend's house and, just playing with my friends or whatever. And then just like that, I would just start having pain, and my mother would have to rush and come get me and take me to the hospital. I have had blood transfusions. I remember times where I'm just completely out of it. I had 104 temperature. They had to put me in a literal ice bath. I mean, completely helpless. There's nothing that I could do, in those moments. But I do remember, feeling hopeful every time, we were rushing to the hospital, because I'm like, this is the only place that's gonna get me out of this. I have a chance of feeling better and escaping this pain that I'm feeling. I just kind of disassociated, I feel a lot as a child, and I didn't know that I was doing it. But none of my friends really knew what was going on. I remember I was in 8th grade, and I was hospitalized for 2 weeks, and just, coming back to school, nothing happened, just super nonchalant. And I kind of kept that attitude up with my illness even until now. I'm very passive about it. And I think I've also carried a lot of guilt, because I do have peers that have suffered worse living with sickle cell disease. And I just didn't really know how to handle those emotions. Obviously I am grateful, and I know that I am super blessed by God's grace that I'm still here. And that is not as severe as it could have been or should have been. There are multiple types of sickle cell disease that you can have, and I have the most severe type of sickle cell disease. And I still feel in between my sickle cell crises and just having to manage living with this blood disease, I've still managed to live a pretty normal life. And I do think about a lot how there are some people with sickle cell disease that have it worse off with me, and I've kind of just internalized that of just having guilt, and that's something that I'm giving over to the Lord. There were also times where I would have sickle cells in my lungs, which is called an acute chest syndrome, which means that there's no oxygen, there's no airflow getting into your lungs because my blood cells are blocking airflow. And I still have PTSD from this. They had to put this mask thing over my face to aggressively push air through my nose into my lungs just so that I can breathe. My mother has told me experiences where they had to put a cold blue on me. It was a lot of it is in and out memories. Like I said, I kind of dissociated a little bit, especially like being in pain. Like the only thing I'm thinking about is just like, make the pain stop, make the pain stop. So some memories are just from what my mother has told me, and then I do have some that I still remember from myself. That was a big part of my early childhood, when I wasn't hospitalized and things were going well and I was feeling healthy. I still had friendships and peers that I played with, and I was raised in New Jersey. I remember having like house parties and just it was fun. Like, my childhood in New Jersey was pretty fun. I don't have any like bad memories about living in New Jersey. I feel like I had community. I feel like there was people around. Even when I was in school, I enjoyed school. I had a best friend that we were pretty close, and things were pretty normal until my parents decided to move me and my brother. I have an older brother who's 6 years older than me, to Pocono Mountains in Pennsylvania. So I moved from New Jersey to Pocono Mountains when I was in the 3rd grade. And I have a vivid memory of that day. With the first day that I started school, my father dropped me off. It was elementary school, 3rd grade. It was Miss Conowalick's class. We knocked on the door. Miss Conowalick opened it. I had on this like long tan, like J-Lo coat, and they all like greeted me, but there was just something in that moment that shifted when I looked out into the classroom, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I'm the only Black person in this class. And that was when I feel like my sense of belonging kind of got taken away from me a little bit, because in Jersey, I went to like Catholic school. I went to St. Michael's and Queen of Angels. I went to the Whitney Houston, I think it was like Academy of Arts, like, and I was surrounded, like, my peers all looked like me. Like, I had Black friends, like, we were in the drama club. I was a cheerleader, even though I was super shy. That was another big thing. I was very shy. I was very timid, and full of fear, just full of fear. But all of my friends were Black or they were Spanish. And so when I'm walking into this classroom, I'm like, I don't know, like, I just felt different. I felt like I stood out. I didn't have the words to express it, but inside, like, that's what I was processing, and I knew something was different. And I remember we had a project. It must have been in March, because we were making paper leprechauns or something. The teacher was handing out just like regular white paper or whatever. And then she approached me and she was like, hey, like, if you want, you can use the brown construction paper instead of the white construction paper to make the leprechaun. And I wasn't a confrontational person, and I really did not speak up for myself at all. Like, I was very afraid and intimidated by people, and just like using my voice to speak. And so I don't know what I responded, but I remember internally, like, something kind of just sunk, and it just deepened the fact that, like, I'm different, because why I can't use the same paper that they using? And I don't know. I don't want to assume that the intentions was to make me feel like an outcast or to make me feel different. That may have been her approach of making me feel, included, or making a leprechaun that looked like me. But it didn't really have that effect. So I knew that I needed to find my tribe, and I wanted friends. I wanted to feel like there were people that understood me, and that I could just kind of like be myself around. And it's already awkward, like being the new girl in a new school. And so from like third grade to fifth grade, I just try to get along and try to make friends, which I did. I mean, it was okay. I was just getting through it until I met my best friend in fifth grade. And this is another vivid memory that I remember. She walked into our classroom and immediately, like before she could even get all the way into the class, I was like, that's her. That's about to be my new best friend. And she was from New York, Spanish. And I was like, I found my person. And so she really became like a sister to me. We were together all the time. We were doing like sleepovers. We would like be at school with each other all day and then get home and like talk on the phone. Like we were obsessed with each other. And she knew about, my illness, and she has always supported me in that. And, whatever I did share, I never really went in deep detail with anyone. But she became my support system. She was my best friend. She was always there. I would bring her along to church with us. I remember one Sunday they were calling up people to get saved, and I was like, girl, we gotta go. And I don't remember how young I was, but we went up there together, and she got saved, and we're still friends today. But that was like my support system. And I, of course, had other friends and things like that, but I would say at the time, like, she was the closest like friend and support that I had while I was in Pennsylvania. I remember being like really bored. And so I knew that after I graduated high school, like, I was going to college. I made it up in my mind. I was going to college. And also, I need to backtrack because I grew up in church. My mother always like made us go to church, and I always went with her. And my father, also went to church with us. Even when I was living in Jersey, I have memories of going to church. And then especially when we moved to Pennsylvania, we found a home church and we were really integrated into that church. But I would say that while I was in the building, I did not foster my own relationship with Jesus Christ. Like, I knew that, he was God, but I couldn't tell you the gospel, right? Like, I didn't really obtain or absorb any knowledge from those years while I was going to church. I think I was more so going to church out of obedience for my family. I enjoyed my brothers and sisters at church. I enjoyed being there. It wasn't a problem, but I wasn't growing spiritually. I will say that. So, I knew of God, I knew of Jesus, but I didn't really have the depth of knowledge or understanding or a true relationship. I wanted to be good. I wanted to be good. I wanted to go to heaven. I was never a rule breaker. I was always okay, I want to follow the rules. And so God was always there, but he was more okay, this is just a God, when I need something, just call on God. He's always there. And that was kind of the extent of the relationship, or the connection that I had to God. Once I graduated high school, I had already made up my mind that I was going to college. I was I need to get out of, the Poconos. I don't want to be here. I'm bored. I want to live my life. I'm tired of being sheltered and like boxed in here. Like there's so much more to life, and I didn't want to be in like the country anymore. I was like, I gotta go to a city. And so I ended up going to Temple University in Philadelphia. And this is where I would say sin started to really like take over my life. And I started having a lot of fun. I was living on campus, with roommates. I remember like just even taking the, like the subway and stuff and the train. I was just like on top of the world. I was enjoying every second of like my independence and my freedom. And I just was like, this is the time. These are the years that I'm just going to explore and like really get to know Jalen for Jalen. Like, who is she? I always did well in school, but I think like I just love the fact that I was on my own. I was in a city. I got so much culture shock like the first week or so when I was there, because Philadelphia has a large like Muslim population, and I never really like had encounters or like was around a lot of Muslims. So I was like, wow, like it was just so diverse from, being in the Pocono Mountains. Like I was just like in awe. I remember it was like freshman week on campus, and someone approached me about like doing a Bible study. And again, like I love God, I'm a Christian. That's how I was raised. So like, sure, I'll go. And when I went to the Bible study, they were kind of talking about like the things that like as Christians that like we shouldn't be doing, like, partying and drunkenness and, all of those sins that the Bible talks of. And I remember sitting there and I was like, eventually I'm going to come back to this, but not right now. Like I can't be in this Bible study because I know that I'm going to leave here and I'm going to go like get dressed, put on a cute outfit, a little crop top and some skinny jeans. And I'm going to go out tonight, and I'm going to go out the next night, and I'm going to have a drink or 2 or 3. And I was just like, at that point, I was like, I want to do what I want to do. Like, I want to party. In high school, like I didn't go to many parties. I didn't drink. So me coming to college, I was like, I really want to know what this college experience is about. And so I didn't go back to the Bible study. Maybe I did like 1 or 2 times, like I tried it, but I was like, it's just too much. And it's like, I can't do this, because I know that I am going to still go out here and do what I want to do. And so college, I would say I really fell into sin. I like had my first drink that first week of college. And it was fun. I was going to clubs. I was at all the house parties, boys everywhere. I started smoking. That's when I tried weed for the first time and got introduced to that. And I was smoking weed. So many different experiences that it was like the first time me being exposed to any of those things. I was enjoying myself. But at the same time, this is when I still was like searching, and I was still dealing with like a lot of identity issues. Like I didn't fully know like who I was, like what type of things I like, what type of things I don't like. I was dating more. I didn't date through high school. Of course, there were like, boys that I had crushes on and stuff like that. But I never had a boyfriend through high school. And so I put a lot of my like self-worth and value if like I had a crush on a guy and, we were talking, but it just wasn't going anywhere. Like I would really speak so negatively about myself and my self-worth, like, oh, like I'm just not worth it. I'm not the type of girl that he wants. Like I'm just not enough. And it really made me feel very like insecure. It made me not really value myself or know my self-worth because I was just looking for so much validation from men, from guys, and I wanted to feel seen for who I am, and I wanted to feel like loved, like how they talk about, in the movies, and how, all the girls talk about like once they get a boyfriend and all these things. And so there was a lot going on at once while I was in college. And the issue about that was I felt like I was having to deal with that all alone. So that's when I started going through a lot of spiritual warfare over just like my identity, my sexuality. Even I had a lot of anxiety because in my college experience, when I first had started smoking weed, I ended up getting an anxiety disorder called derealization, and that was one of the scariest things that I've ever went through in my life. And I remember like just not even, I just felt invisible. I didn't feel like myself. I felt like I was outside of my body, like looking, at the world. It was just a very strange feeling. I did not feel like myself at all. That caused me to I had to drop out of some classes because I just couldn't handle it. I started going to therapy that they were offering, on our campus. And I remember when I was going through that, I was like, Lord, please get me out of this. Like, please just help me go back to normal. Please, please, please. And I will never do it again. Like, how you plead and you make those promises to God and then he gets you out of it and then you do it again. And so that was the extent of my relationship with God. While I still had this independence and I was having fun and freedom being in the city and making friends, and I was like working off campus. So I wasn't like, my friends weren't even at some point, like my junior and senior year. Yes, I had friends that were like in college, but I also had friends that were like just natives to Philly because I was working in a restaurant, and we would all hang out. We would do our shift and then we'd go out afterwards and like go to the club. We went to Cuba Libre. I went to Cuba Libre like every weekend to like go dance and stay out till 2 a.m. Like it was a lot going on, but I was still seeking. I felt like I still was lacking in a lot of areas of my life and in my identity. And then somewhere along the lines, I don't know when exactly, but I started getting into like astrology and I started studying zodiac signs, and I felt like, wow, like this stuff, it seems like so true. Like, it's helping me to learn about myself. It's helping me to learn who I am. Is helping me to understand other people in my life that I don't understand. And that like passion, I guess you would say, or obsession with astrology just kind of took off. Probably around like 2017, 2018, I was deep into New Age spirituality, because I still didn't know who I was. Like I still was very insecure. I still didn't trust in my own decision making. And I don't really think that I liked myself. I didn't really like myself. And so the astrology, I thought it was like answering questions for me. And I started putting my identity in what the zodiac signs were saying about me. I started making videos on YouTube about astrology. I started studying like natal charts, and I would go to my parents and my brothers and all my friends like, hey, give me your birthday. Let me see all of this. Let me look at your chart. Let me tell you about this. Oh, this means X, Y, and Z. And then I started, that led me into like crystals. I mean, I truly feel like zodiac sign is like the gateway into that whole thing, because once you once you start studying zodiac signs, now you're like, oh, each zodiac sign has this erogenous zone, and they have another crystal that's associated with this. And it was just a rabbit hole that I just kept getting deeper and deeper and deeper into, but I was never satisfied. And I felt like I always wanted more. I would like go to these shops where they had like all these crystals, and I would learn about all these crystals, and I'd buy them, and then I remember I had like an amethyst stone, and at the time, like, I was having insomnia, and I heard that like amethyst can like help you sleep or help you heal from like, sleeping like disorders and stuff like that. And so I put like one of the crystals under my pillow, and I was believing in this rock that it was going to help me to like have better rest. And I was just like consuming so much. Every single day I was watching like astrology related videos online. I was like manifesting and scripting, and then eventually I started looking at tarot card readings, and that grew into like an addiction. I did not watch anything else except for tarot card readings. And I was obsessed with it. Like, I couldn't put it down. And I was looking at these videos because I was seeking answers. Whether that was like, what's going to happen in my future? What type of career should I have? Does this guy like me? What's going to happen in our, relationship? Like, I was just thinking that what I was searching for was going to be found in these videos. Camera died. So like I was saying, I was deeply addicted to these tarot card videos on YouTube. I would spend hours watching these videos and just like asking questions and seeing if I can get an answer. And I was completely addicted to them. I was too afraid to like buy my own tarot cards. I mean, I did, but to like read tarot cards, because for some reason, that's where I drew the line. I was like, as long as I'm not doing tarot myself, then it's okay. Like, that was my justification for it, which is completely not true. It felt like watching the astrology videos and getting deep into like zodiac signs and tarot was giving me this false sense of like me understanding myself and me getting to know who I was. But it really wasn't. It was just making me be the person that those zodiac sign videos said that I was supposed to be. And so I was putting my identity, I was putting my faith, I was putting my hope, I was putting my trust in a tarot reader. And I was taking what they were saying like as truth. And I was allowing what these like videos and stuff, I was allowing that to define who I am. At this point, I was using terminology like calling God the universe, and just like putting my hope and my faith and my trust in God's creations and not the creator. And my mom at the time, again, she is a Christian, would kind of warn me about these things, like, basically saying like, like, you need to watch out for that, and that's not good for you to be doing. But I was enjoying it. Like, I was addicted to it. And I was just like, yeah, but God created all this stuff. He created the stars. He created, the crystals and all these things. Like, why is that not okay? Like, I genuinely don't understand. But one day I was sitting there watching these videos, and I was kind of getting tired, because I was like, every video says like something different, or every video is like, I think I get an answer, but then the moment the video goes off, I don't feel like satisfied. Like, I feel like I have to go and continue to seek answers and continue to like watch more and more and more and consume more and more and more of these videos. And I just like, I'm kind of tired. And so I don't know what it was, but I was like, I want to see if my mother is right. And I want to see if there's any truth to this. Like, what does the Bible actually say about astrology? And so that took me on a whole deep dive. And I'm going to make a separate video about this. But basically, you know, I realized that it was simple. I realized that, you know, I needed to quit. The Lord just, that was an area of my life that he really like delivered me from, and I repented from, and I just was like, okay, this is real. What I'm doing is not working. It is not of God. And I just started reading his word and just wanting to know more. And I felt, as I was reading the Bible, I was like, wow, like I feel satisfied. Like I don't feel like I want to watch a tarot video. And I feel pretty good. Like I feel refreshed. Like I feel there's nothing else that I have to like seek. And so me realizing that is what really kind of catapulted me into like pursuing my relationship with Christ even more, and like that intimacy and getting to know like, okay, what is his character? Like, what is this all about? Like having my own personal relationship with him, because he brought me out of something that I really felt like I was just being dragged down into. And I felt like I was just being, you know, like a prisoner to all of these things that I was like consuming and all these things that I was doing. I wanted to heal. I wanted to know like what he says about me. And I wanted to be at peace, because when I was reading like astrology and in that whole new age spirituality world, like I always felt like I was chasing something, and I never felt that I was at peace. I never felt like I really had the truth about anything. Like it would satisfy me for a moment, but then I'd want more. And so I started kind of like going down this journey. At the time, like I called it spiritual awakening, but God kind of used that and like redeemed that and brought me closer to him. I actually don't know where I am right now in the story, but me getting into astrology happened like, I would say maybe like the tail end of college, and then, you know, all throughout post college. And I was just continuing to just like get sucked into all of the new age spirituality things. And I also was dating a guy. It was a good relationship. I think it was more rooted in friendship. And I was just happy to be in a relationship and have someone to like a companion to do things with and have fun with. And, you know, we've made good memories. But of course, I was still sinning because I was sleeping with this person. And I knew deep down that he wasn't going to be my husband. I don't know how I knew, but I just knew. And one of the big reasons was because we weren't on the same page with our faith. Even though at the time, like, I don't really think I had like great doctrine. Like I couldn't really like defend my faith. I wasn't studying the word enough to defend my faith. But we would like have some kind of debates because he was a Jehovah's Witness. And when we first started dating, I never really encountered Jehovah's Witnesses. So, you know, he said he was Christian, so I just took that as truth, and I was just like, okay, well, I'm Christian too. Perfect. Non-denominational Christian. It's great. But as we would talk more about faith, I was like, no, that don't sound right. You know, when we'd have these like little debates and stuff, and I just kept thinking about my children. I kept thinking about like my future family life, and I'm like, I don't want to raise a family where they're confused about whether or not they should believe mommy or daddy on what they believe in when it comes to their faith. Like, I want to be in sync and on the same page with my husband, especially when we're raising, our family. And I don't want to always be constantly trying to defend or prove my faith to the person that I'm married to. Like, I was a very strong, I guess, like, I just had a conviction about that. And so, we ended up breaking up. And, obviously it was hard for me because this was a person that I spent a lot of time with. We had a lot of fun with. And this was maybe my second boyfriend. And so that I wanted to feel normal, and I wanted to heal from that. But the Lord was speaking to me, and I remember journaling, and oftentimes the Lord would speak to me as I write, and he just was like, I need you to make a commitment to celibacy. And I'm scared at the time, because I'm like, if I become celibate, no man is going to want me because I'm not going to have sex with them. I was terrified because this, especially coming from college, that was the culture. It's just y'all sleeping with each other, And I'm just how is this going to work? I want love, and I associated sleeping with the man with them loving you. It was an exchange. But again, I knew that I needed to do it. And so I committed to, being celibate. And, my mindset, I think the Lord started renewing my mindset over even how I started to view relationships. And he just put the desire on my heart, the next person that you are in a relationship with, that is going to be your husband. And it didn't happen right away. There were years where the Lord was still pruning me and just going through all the lessons and working on boundaries and speaking up for myself. And, it was a lot. But I just knew okay, this is what I want. And he just started deepening that desire and that longing for a husband, and just praying for a husband. And I was still, sporadically dating, but I wasn't in any relationships. But I just had more of a clarity of okay, this is what I want. And I believe that this is what the Lord wants for me. And, fast forward, I ended up starting a massage business and moving into an apartment. I had a roommate. This is after college, so I was back in Jersey. And I remember I was walking around the neighborhood. I tend to like to do that. So I was just walking around the neighborhood, and I just felt I don't know. I just felt in my spirit, it was just you're not going to be here for long. And it just when I felt that, it was just it was as if it was truth. I just knew that this was only a temporary location. I didn't know where else I was going to go because rent is high in New Jersey. I was living by myself. I was no longer living with my parents, my father. I was I don't know how this is going to work, but I just know that this is not the place. And I just felt I would be moving. And so I'm just kind of going through the motions and working. And then the Lord just kind of put it on my heart, Raleigh, North Carolina. And I'm low key, I'm kind of scared of the South because I don't know. I feel it's completely two different worlds, from New Jersey up north to now I'm going down south. That's a lot. And you want me to move there by myself? I mean, I wasn't afraid though. I was just this is going to be interesting. But when I tell you, he just kept confirming. he just kept confirming Raleigh, North Carolina, and he made every part of that move and transition so smooth. And I remember during that year, I was just like staring out of my living room window, and like it was just, the view was just like of a parking lot and the street, nobody really out there, and I'm just like staring out the window, and I just saw like a vision of like a waiting area, like if you're in a doctor's office or something, and there were just like all these chairs around, there was no one in there, and I'm just like watching this scene. And then, the door opens, and then somebody, comes out, and it's just like, we're ready for you. And in that moment, I just knew that the Lord was saying, like, this right here, like this apartment, this city, everything, like you're just in a waiting area right now, but I'm going to open a door for you, and you're going to be able to walk straight through. And that's exactly what happened. And when I was, planning to move, the one thing that was on my heart was like, when I move here to North Carolina, I am going to find my faith community. I'm going to get myself into a church, and like I need to have community, because at the time all of my friends had my best friend had moved, back to well, not back, she moved to Florida, and my other best friend had moved back to New York. And so I really didn't have a community. I felt like that was a season where I was kind of just by myself, and the Lord was just placing it on my heart to like get to know him more. And so I tried to find different churches where I was at in New Jersey, but I just didn't feel a sense of belonging at any of those churches. I didn't feel connected. I didn't feel like this is going to be the place that I am going to like really make my home church. And it just was difficult. Like I don't know why it was hard, but it was just difficult. Probably because he needed me to move anyway. Like if I would have found a church in Jersey, I probably wouldn't have moved. And so, long story short, I, had visited North Carolina, Raleigh, and I just fell in love. I was like, I felt at peace. I felt calm. I wasn't afraid of the move. I didn't know anyone here, but I felt that I could settle down here. I felt that I could create a family here. And mind you, he had already put on my heart, like, pray for your husband. He had already put on my heart, like, this sense of feeling of like, okay, you, like, within the next 3 years, like, I want to start a family, which I was never thinking about that. Like, I knew that it would be in the future, but it was nothing that I was like being intentional about. And so ended up moving here. He worked everything out to get down here. It was, yeah. I mean, he took care of it all, like the apartment, he took care of everything. And then I came down here and I did exactly what I said I was going to do. I was church hopping. I was going to all these different churches, like trying to figure out, okay, where is my home church? Where am I going to be fed? And it, I went to about maybe 2 or 3 churches. Lord ended up telling me to go to the church that I'm at now. I came to the church where I'm at now, and just started getting acclimated. I knew that this is where I wanted to become a member at. It just felt right. I felt that I belonged here. I felt like I immediately just like found so much community, and I would say that it was here that my faith journey with God just really accelerated. I just started being in my word more, my prayer life. I used to be so afraid to pray. That got, better. My understanding of the word and just my my doctrine got clearer, and I got more wisdom and understanding. My community, I had people around me that love God, that love the word, that I can talk about these things with. And now, up until this point, he really has just changed my life in so many great ways. I'm more confident. I'm not as full of fear. I'm not as much of a people pleaser. I have better self esteem. I actually love who I am, who He created me to be. I have more understanding of my purpose, of my calling. I'm more emotionally mature. Um, you know, I I mean, He delivered me from all the new age spirituality and just putting my identity in things of the world. And He really renewed my mind. He gave me peace. I no longer am like such a worrier and anxious person. I have anxious moments, but I just take that to Him. And, He has really become my friend. Like, I know Christ to be my friend. He is my counselor. Like, I go to Him first for everything. I don't make decisions without consulting Him. And He has been faithful throughout my entire journey. He has always been there, even when I was deep in my sin, when I was ignoring Him, when I was not pursuing Him, when I was being disobedient. Like, He just changed my life and how I view myself, how I view other people. And my testimony is still evolving. Your testimony doesn't ever end, as we're always growing in Christ. We're always maturing in Christ. But I am so grateful to know Him as a promise keeper. He brought my husband to me at the church that I am a member of now. So He kept His promise to me. I mean, I still have, obviously, am gonna be living with sickle cell disease for the rest of my life. I can't, get rid of it, but I'm so blessed that, that's a testimony in itself. The doctors told my parents that I wasn't gonna live past 10. I just celebrated my 31st birthday in May. Like, I'm not as sick as I could be. I have moments. There are hard weeks. I never know when I'll end up in the hospital or when something will trigger a crisis, but He has kept me. He has protected me from so many situations that I have put myself in that I should not be here. I mean, my entire worldview has changed now that I know Christ. And I know He's still working on me. Like, that's the reason why I have this podcast. I'm still being made. I'm still being made into that person that He's created me to be, to the woman, to the wife that He's, made me into. And I'm excited to see how the rest of my testimony unfolds. There's a lot of parts that I probably left out. And so this probably won't be the last video that I make about my testimony. But that's it. That's my testimony. If you made it to the end of this video or to the audio, I appreciate you for listening. And if you have a similar testimony, or if you've been afraid to share your testimony, I encourage you to share. I encourage you to speak about all the good that God has done in your life. Even the moments where you felt like He wasn't there, it's important to speak about that too, to be raw, to be honest, to be vulnerable, because there's healing in that. I'll see you next Friday. Bye.